What's going on, everybody? I'm still getting stuff painted. I'm actually trying for like the third or fourth time on the Honda Civic shell, but we are pretty close to done with painting for all the current projects we're doing right now, although we might be starting a few more pretty soon. But we do have all of the parts we should need for R2-D2. I'm sure we'll run into a problem where we need an extra fitting somewhere or something like that. In terms of all the main parts, all of our tubing, fittings, brackets, everything we should need, starting with the actual water block. Obviously we had it in place. I had to take it back off. We have to change the orientation. I don't know why I thought we had it going this way in the last build, but we actually have to have it going this way because you can't really loop this one around without cutting the one case screw holder on the hard drive piece that goes back here. So we're just kind of figuring out the fittings on here. We obviously want to get some tubing put in place. I also remember why 3/8 tubing was kind of difficult. You can see we really need this to loop around. There's not enough space to put a barb and an elbow on here. It'll just run into the metal frame there. But with this setup, obviously it's not going to touch the mounting hardware, but once we have tubing on there, it's probably going to be a pretty tight fit. So we'll have to put tubing on first and get this just right, because it has to be angled up a little bit so we're not resting on the capacitor right there. Speaking of tubing, we got some Alpha tube from Alpha Cool. It looks regular clear, but it's actually UV blue, just like the fan blades we're using and the radiator that we're using and probably the fluid that we're using. First of all, guys, check out Declassified Systems. I've been watching this guy for over a decade. Incredible builds, so clean. But anyway, that's as far as we're going on this today. Thanks for watching. No, I'm just kidding. But we are going to set this aside, and I'm going to get my test fit board out so we can finish the bracket for our reservoir pump combination. I want to get that set and then put the top piece on with the radiator with a couple fittings on it so we can kind of see our clearance with the pump and the fitting that comes out of this side of the radiator specifically. The bottom piece of our hard drive holder unit thing, we already started cutting this one, so we are going to use this and just transfer this tray over to this one. You can see we already trimmed some of these fins on here. That's these that stick up, and that's because of the fan. It's going to be like right up against that. But I'm going to go ahead and trim them all the way down because you can see the tube will technically fit between the mount on the block and this, but it's kind of a snug, like it's touching both sides, so I'd rather trim that all the way down, make sure there's a little bit of wiggle room in there. Our bracket, which started off as a pump bracket, had to bend two sides, cut a couple other sides off, drill some new holes, and we also cut that little piece out of the back of that thing that holds the DVD drive, since we're not going to have that. And that's so the pump can sit just a little bit lower than that surface. And we'll have to attach the pump to this piece so that'll be all one. Did finally get some hardware to actually put this bracket in place. So we're going to screw that in approximately where I think it should be, and we'll see if that's going to hold this stuff in the right position. Okay, I reached the point of the build where there's usually an issue and I just have to just stare at it, try out different parts, hold up different parts, and go, is that going to work? Is that going to fix it? Hey, this works, but it causes a problem over here. Is that problem worse than that problem? No. So we'll do that and then fix that problem. You know what I mean. The bracket was hovering above all of this stuff. It's only sagging because I don't have any washers on here besides rubber washers, so it's just allowing it to go down a little bit. I think I do still need to move the bracket up just one little notch, and then that should be all solved with the position of this, the hole we need that goes around it. Now, the one problem I foresaw was the exit of our pump and the exit of this side of the radiator. I thought it was going to go straight into this. It doesn't, which is awesome. It actually goes right next to it, like this. But if we have a 90 on this one going that way, then that is going to go straight into that fitting. So both of these have to go towards the front like that. And instead of having them kind of staggered like that, I'm going to add an extension on the left one to raise it up so that they can both be parallel this way, and they'll kind of be on top of each other. We have plenty of room underneath that to go lower towards the motherboard. If I can explain the loop real quick, it might be a little confusing until we actually get stuff in here, but we know our block is here. This comes out and loops around and goes that way. This one comes out and goes that way. So we're starting obviously with the reservoir, fill it up here, goes directly into our pump. Pump is going to pump it straight into that tube that's coming around this way for the block, into the block. I'm going to come out of the block, and I'm actually changing the fitting that I put on this side of the block to this guy, just a multi-port that I happen to have, so we can plug in our temperature display, well, the sensor for the temperature display, and then this is going to come out 90, well, it's already got a 90, and then it's going to 90 this way, being really close to the motherboard. It's going to go underneath the tube that's coming out of here, and then we're going to loop it behind the pump. That's going to be the tightest fit, just because of all the stuff we need plugged in back here. Going to loop around 90 this way. Okay, then it's going to hug the bracket, basically laying on it, coming all the way up front, 90 this way, kind of resting on this right here. There we go, like this. And then this way to hit the one coming out of here that's going to be extended to be lower. So that goes down right here and then hugs next to the tube coming out of our block this way, and then a 90 to plug into this one. So this whole piece will have to be attached to the radiator already when we set it down, and this piece will already be in place. Once we set that down, plug that tube in. And then it's going through the radiator, comes out this side, which will be a 90 like right here, pretty much perfectly even with the opening for the disk drive. And then same thing, 90 this way, so there'll be two tubes like this, and we'll plug in the bottom one, and we plug in that top one, and we're going to have the top one extended out so that it's actually sticking out of the front of the faceplate, but that can already be connected, and then the faceplate can just slide on going around that, and as it goes around, 90 out the back where we have the hole cut on the actual tray we're using, 90 this way, and we have a flow meter. It's going to go in through the flow meter, out 90, back into here with a 90. So one of those scenarios, if I was good at hard tube bending or was confident with using hard tubing, it's something I'm going to give to any of the shipping services, it would be way more difficult with all the 90 bends you had to do and making them perfect. So with that, all I had was a 5-pack of these elbows. I went ahead and ordered a 7-pack, and I actually just found out now, as I was explaining that I'm going to need 12 of these altogether, which is perfect. We have 5, we got 7 more coming tomorrow, but obviously I want to get this as far along as I can until we get to the point where we need more of these elbows. So very wild loop for such a small space. One, we're taking up all the space we can. I mean, why not? We got space to use. And 2, the whole point is so that it's extremely easy to set this top piece on and just connect these two. Boom, boom, good to go. And then I guess the one coming out of the flow meter back into the top of this, but that's no big deal. I also wanted to just show a little more tubing. Like I said, the one coming out of the disk drive, and then up top, instead of having that grill piece up here, and instead of having the flow meter like all the way back here so it could just plug right in and then come out back into there, I wanted as far back as possible so that this tube comes out, and we've got a tube hugging the entire top. Yeah, I think I found the exact holes on the side that we need to line this up perfectly, but I actually want to see if our speaker here is still going to fit in the normal spot that it clips into without touching this bracket. We should have enough space. Worst case scenario, we can just extend the little wires on there and we'll mount it behind the ring of light board over here. So I think we got this all figured out now. Obviously just for testing purposes, I shoved a washer behind the bottom part of the bracket, partly because there's a little bit of a bump towards the top of this vent, and I need this just high enough to where it's kind of touching that little bump, and so the whole thing was wanting to just angle down a little bit. So I think I can just put something, whether it's literally just a washer glued in between those two so that it makes it kick out just a little bit, because I don't want to keep trying to bend this and then I go too far and I got to bend it the other way and vice versa. But you can see with that, we're now perfectly level. We're not touching the capacitors. In fact, we've got plenty of space there. That makes me feel comfortable. We are also above this speaker, even though, like I said, we don't have to worry about that on the other board. But I did also put the speaker that we are using underneath where it would normally go, just to make sure it clears that, and it does. We don't need to relocate that. Got the rest of this trimmed out. We needed those little braces, just trimmed so we had more clearance for our tube going through there. I also cut out this piece here. I'm hoping, that's the only thing I'm worried about is that tube going behind here with all the stuff plugged in there. It's probably going to be a little tight fit, especially having the temperature display above all that right here. But I'm pretty confident that's going to work out fine, and we have that space for that to loop around and go down. I might have to go a little bit farther on this. We'll see. Might be a tight fit. Now our plan is we want to attach the pump to this first, and I'm literally going to use E6000 all around there. I might add some more plastic pieces because we do have a little bit of a gap between the pump and this. Went a little too far trimming that, but that's okay. I needed the wiggle room to get this set right. So we got to obviously set this over top so that our reservoir is exactly where we need it, and then we can mark that off where the pump is here, get that attached. Once that's in, we can set it all back in place, put this back on top, get our adhesive between the brace and the reservoir, because that's the one thing that has to be perfect. If the pump is off by a couple millimeters, that's okay. We have a little wiggle room with this, but this has to be perfect to fit inside our opening there. Once that's all made up, I don't mind this bracket being permanently attached to the reservoir. We can reach both the mounting hardware screws without having to move the reservoir, so we can take this whole thing off in one piece, set it on the board we're actually using, and then we're going to take care of, actually before we do that, we need to take care of the wiring that plugs in underneath this. And then we can actually start hooking up more of the tubing and at least get as far as we can today. Like I said, I've only got 5 of these and I need 12. Now for the LEDs, we have one long UV LED strip, and that will illuminate all of our tubing, our fluid, our fan through here, and we'll connect that LED strip to the DVD cable. So the DVD cable, we need 5 volts for our temperature display, 12 volts for our LED strip, plus any other LEDs we're adding, which will be at least 1 on the faceplate. I want to drill out the little red light that's just a decal on the faceplate. We're going to drill it out and make it a real red light, and then we'll take our OEM fan cable and we're going to splice 2 3-pins into it so we can plug our pump and our fan. And finally, I said the monitor is going to 5 volts on the DVD cable, but in between that, it's going to need to go to our switch in the back and then to the temperature display. That way, that can be turned on and off. Now that we have this lined up exactly where we need it, I went ahead and threw just 2 little dots of the E6000 right there on the corner of the pump and on the other side of the pump. It's obviously not going to be all we're using to attach those 2 pieces, but I need those 2 spots to cure so that we can take this out without it moving around. So that's going to be a little while. I'm going to wait several hours to make sure that's more cured than just tacky. So we can't disturb that, and I did put that on top just to make sure the reservoir isn't wanting to kind of tilt forward, but I actually have a few Lego pieces underneath the water pump so that it's not sagging lower or trying to touch the motherboard. It's stacked up so that it's at the exact height we need it. So while we let that adhesive set, let's take care of some of this wiring. Here's our OEM fan. That's where that goes. We just need this. This one is made up. 2 3-pin connectors on our fan plug. Now we have a DVD drive cable. We do have the original one, but the slim ones are just shorter and have like stiffer, slightly smaller gauge wires, it feels like. So we're going to use a regular fat one. Got this cut down, so your 2 blank ones on the bottom, first 2 on the right, we loop together. That's the disk tray sensor. That makes it think there's still a disk drive in there, so it's not going to flash the light or anything like that. Our 2 middle ones, 5 volt on the right, ground on the left. And the 2 top ones, 12 volts on the right, ground on the left. And I'm not going to connect the wire or the LEDs or temperature display to these yet. I just want to be able to have it in place and have the wires sticking out so they're accessible to add that stuff on once we have everything else in. Otherwise, we're going to have just kind of a mess in the way that we have to keep moving around. At this board here, now I plan on putting a multi-port coming out of this guy. The only one I have is this crazy bulky one, and it literally is like 2 pounds. I think the best bet is going to be putting it coming off the pump. There's just more wiggle room there. It's going to hit this capacitor no matter which orientation I have it. I can't really do the same thing to this side because again there's even taller capacitors there, and this would have to be angled up enough that it's probably going to hit the fan above it. Got the cables plugged in there, so the next step is going to be to transfer this thing over to here and finish getting it glued. But even when this is fully cured to where I'm comfortable pulling this out, I'm still going to have to finish putting adhesive all the way around there, and it'll just have to wait overnight. Which is fine, because once we move this over, I'm going to start connecting stuff, and I'm going to run out of these elbows pretty quick. So I'm going to wait longer on this, and probably after the video I'll go back and add the rest of the adhesive around there so it can cure overnight and be ready to swap over when we get our other elbow fittings and a couple extensions I got, because I mentioned moving the one fitting coming out of the radiator so that it's lower, closer to the motherboard, so we have a couple extensions for that as well. It does seem pretty darn close, but I just want to wait a little bit longer. In the meantime, I've got some pretty cool packages that showed up today. First one, not that interesting, just lettering. Blue, large lettering, and that's we can put Rogers on the side of the Xbox. Xbox is in the Honda Civic build. We got some stickers in from Redbubble. So here, this is for our giveaway Green Eclipse build. Danger to manifold, that was the best sticker I could find, and I'm not worried about the stuff around it. I'm just going to cut out literally the red part for the little window below the fan. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's on the membership. Toyo tires, that's of course for Brian's Skyline. I have sponsorship decal kits coming in blue and red for those two builds, the Green Eclipse and the Skyline, but I wanted a larger Toyo tire sticker, and I'm not sure if it even comes with a Toyo tire sticker. But this is kind of the first sponsorship. Someone said name a sponsorship on the Silver Skyline. You've got this one across the back of the car. Next up, I'm working on a Chucky controller, and these are just decals for that. And then we have another one for the Green Eclipse. And the last one in this pack is the iconic stripes for the Skyline. So I want to have probably this one here on the back side, and then this one right about there. And then for the stripe, we're actually going to cut this into sections, because I want it to start about here, have it go up, stop by the window, and then it will continue on the fan shroud all the way up here, and then the rest of it will start here and go up to the faceplate. And then I actually plan to paint just the top of some of these fins here to line up with those blue stripes. It's probably just going to be a couple, 2 or 3 right next to each other in the middle. That way that stripe pretty much goes all the way across. Next up, we have one of those packages where you're worried that the person's going to message you and ask for some of the stuff back or ask for more money, because it seems like they threw in just about every little extra part they had. For the Honda Civic build, we have a green Talus Moon fan we're using for it, and I needed a clear fan shroud. The one I know that exists was somebody by the name of, I could be wrong here, RGH Sale on eBay. Want to shout them out because they clearly hooked me up here. And I know they were selling 3D printed ones. They had a version 1, a version 2 for like $20 and $30. Version 2 was just, it looked like a higher quality print material, so it was a little more actually clear. Obviously, they're not going to be crystal clear. And it looked like he didn't have any listed at the time. I needed one, so I just messaged him, hey, do you have any more of those? Or they're, making any more soon? And he's like, I have 2 more, I'll go ahead and list them. So he listed it, and it said version 2, and it was just listed for $20 free shipping. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. Honestly, I was probably going to get the version 1 because I sort of liked the more opaque look. I think that's going to be better for diffusion of the lights. But what I got here is 2 of them. It looks like we have, this is a version 1. This is probably the one I'm going to use. So it's, more like a milk jug, I guess. It is see-through, obviously. You can see my fingers on the other side. But it's like a frosted see-through, if you will. And then here, I guess he threw in both. I don't know if it said quantity 2. Maybe I'll check if I actually paid double. But this is your version 2. A lot cleaner, a lot smoother. You can see my fingers through there a lot better. Very cool. Then I realized there's even more stuff in here. I started unwrapping bubble wrap. We have this here. And this is basically to replace your regular HDD shell for a Slim. So it's not meant to have a top on it. You just put the hard drive in there and screw it in on the sides, and then that's it. You'll have to tie around one of those little pull tabs on the end here. It's got the slots for it, and that just fits perfectly. And it literally slides right in there, clips your hard drive in place, pull it back out. Now, as cool as this is, I don't know if I'm going to use that for this build. I still think I'd rather use the OEM shell since I have a top piece painted for it. And you're going to see a little bit of that through the window, but only a little bit. And I'd rather there just be blue instead of, a hard drive sticker on that. But definitely going to keep this for another build. And along with that is a 360 Slim disk drive removal bezel piece. So this is if you're getting rid of the disk drive, it'll still allow you to clip on the front bezel, which is something I probably would have considered for this build once again, but that was before I landed on wanting the tube to stick out of that front and not use the actual bezel piece. So shout out RGH Sale. I don't know if he meant to do this, but thank you so much. Go ahead and check out his store. I've seen him build some other cool stuff. He actually did a couple full PCs inside of 360 shells. Lastly, I wanted to bring up another client build we just took on. So we just finished the nightlight build and got that sent out. We're working on the R34 GTR, obviously R2 H2.0, and the Chucky controller. I'm going to go ahead and add another one. Now this is going to be similar to the nightlight build, but it will be a working 360. And basically they just want the nice clean window, but they want everything white to match their PC with some RGB LEDs, just like we put in this one. You can use the ones that you have on a remote. It will be an RGH system. We've already ordered a console to start with. But the little bit of a twist is when I say all white, I mean we don't want a white shell with white stuff painted inside and then a big green motherboard. We want a white motherboard. Now how do you make that happen? Well, two words, one word. It's one word. Plasti-dip. Now I know that sounds pretty sketchy, but think about it like this. Plasti-dip is a rubberized coating, so it's non-conductive. You can paint it on the motherboard. Now obviously you're not going to want to paint over the chip surfaces, things that heat sinks go on, things like that. And this isn't something I just pulled out of my rear end. Somebody has done this before, somebody I know, actually someone I got some of those cool ghost shells from, like the liquid metal shell. I'll include some of the photos they sent me. They actually did it to a slim board. They did it themselves. We're going to do it to a fat, and of course I still have a few extra xenon boards that don't really function but will at least power on enough for me to know before and after we paint it if we broke it or not. Furthermore, that dual fan shroud that I made right here, which we originally made for the BMW build and put this color shift paint on it, minus all the dust there. There we go, that's better. And it's to accommodate putting a CPU heatsink on the GPU side without the disk drive in there. And I'll be honest, I was pretty proud of this, but when I decided not to use it in that build, I'm like, okay, that's fine. I can use it in another build. Definitely want to use it. It's a cool piece. And so I was going to use it in the Skyline build, but again, I'm like, no, it's just not going to work for how I want to build that one. But I guess this person read my mind, because we're going to use it in the all-white build. We're going to make sure it's super clean. That's part of taking the disk drive out, and we'll just have the two clean heat sinks. And obviously we're going to have to repaint this white, which is fine. It's a cool paint job, but it's just a single can of paint. So lots of client builds. We do have I guess the Honda Civic build is the only one that will be for sale when it's done that we're working on currently. I said join the membership, check out us building the Green Eclipse build, and when it's done, we're giving it away on the membership. Here's your face plate. And we have one final announcement. Well, okay, it's a two-parter. One, I may or may not have acquired a faceplate that matches this fan. Extremely rare. I mean, that day in general was wild. Got leads on a lot of cool stuff. Secondly, we've just hit 3,000 subscribers, which is awesome. Thank you to everyone who watches, comments, likes, supports the channel. Thank you so much to all of our members. And thank you to my mom for the birthday card. I haven't texted her yet to thank her for that. I just got it today. And that is it, guys. Don't forget to not like, comment, or subscribe. Check out the link in the description for the membership. And we'll see you guys in the next video.